Dear soil friends, my name is Alar Astover. I'm from Estonian University of Life Sciences and I'm a soil scientist. And nice to see you here in early morning. And we want to talk today about the soils and of their potential to contribute also to the climate change mitigation. And firstly, I will introduce our panelists today, and for opening words, Kristi Klaas, Deputy Minister of Ministry of the Climate of Estonia, and then experts. First, Lieva Visite from Latvia and State Forest Research Institute, and then the soil science expert from Estonia, Elsa Putku, and Center of Estonian Rural Research and Knowledge. So please, all the panelists can take the position, and I will keep the opening words for the Kristi then.
You want to take a seat also? Hi, hello, also from my side. I'm glad to see a lot of people here. Just to open the discussion, I wanted to just reflect, how the climate negotiations have been going on for years now. It's my 5th COP. And what I can say that even 5 years ago, the focus was only talking directly about GHG emissions and how to mitigate and how to adapt to climate change. But there was less discussions about all the other effects that the climate change will have. So we didn't really talk about biodiversity, or we didn't talk so much about health, and we didn't talk about soils. And year after year, there has been a great development where really the nexus topics are really brought on the table. And healthy soils are really a crucial element in adapting to climate change, and also preserving our ecosystems and to provide us food we need, and to be able to produce food. So I'm very glad that we have this discussion today here. According to the scientists in the EU, around 70% of soils are not in a good status. Of course, it varies in different countries. But what is important there is that if we talk about soils, we wouldn't talk only about agricultural land, but we need to really understand also what's going on with different kind of ways of land use. So what's happening really there, and to understand what's the status of the soils, we need data. And I believe in many countries the data is lacking, and we don't have such a good understanding what's the status of different lands really are. So I'm very, very glad to open this discussion, and I hope we can go more in detail and really understand where the issue really is. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm now switching the slides and giving some short background for the next discussion, and also for the this kind of participatory experiment where all you can take part as well. So, but first, after this kind of experimental part, we will have a discussion about two-like lines, because of we should understand that the soils can be very different It's easy to say that soil can solve a lot of problems, but we need to understand the diversity and two major differences about the carbon cycling as well is related if you have the mineral soil or the organic soil. So the behavior and the management should be completely different. And afterwards, this Elsa Putko will cover part of the mineral soils, and Eva about organic soils. And just for the general background, especially in this meeting, we all understand that there is some global challenges what we are facing, and we try to look solutions for them. But if we want to have this kind of real impact through the better soil management, then we should understand that soil and its combination with the plant and the soil living organism is completely local. So we need to understand these local processes where some gases will be released or captured by the plants and transformed, and it's not global. So it means that we need to have a very clear this kind of understanding on the local processes, and as it was mentioned, we need to have this kind of local data and knowledge as well. This kind of thing like global soil, it does not exist in reality. So, and you can see even this, if we have this very fine scale soil map output on the right hand, the diversity of these soils and also this organic carbon behind, you see that with some 100 meters it can be changed in very fast and fast. Okay. So, but now let's take actions. And now, what is the trick? How do you can capture or store more carbon or more wider term organic matter in the soil? Who is making this process? It's not happening itself. It should be like a marriage and happy family combination with the soil and the plant. This is the primary, like a photosynthesis as well. So these are the primary producers in land ecosystem. And now we will make an experiment where you will all get the balloon. And balloons are like a different soil and climate conditions. Some of them are different colors. Probably then you understand. This is soil A, this is soil B, and C. But often it's also that they look similar from the top, and you don't understand diversity as well. And now you are like a farmer or land user, and you are obligated to make this kind of plant soil system, this family, to be happy, so that the plants can produce new carbon values that we can circulate and also partly stored to the soil. So, just now we will do it. You will get the balloon, and your exercise is to inflate it as much as you want. You are land manager, you are deciding how you are managing your site. And let's see how effective you are. And if you just inflate as much you want, then you just roll it and try to keep this carbon in the soil that you have put in. Okay? Let's make it. Please, who is willing to participate, just take one or two and then send to your friend as well. And just to try to make your best. So, who was the best soil manager and stored most of the carbon in the soil in the permanent way? So, if you talk about this terminology, the carbon sequestration is, for the soil, it means it should be this part that stays for a long period. And at least the better way to do it for 100 years. Now is the question how you can keep it in 100 years in the same shape as you wanted. As you see, the most of you failed. And why it's so? Because of you are not making the new photosynthesis anymore. The marriage or happy family is not working anymore. So it means that they keep the soil in good conditions. You need to keep the plants happy as well, and this combination that now is should be contextualized difference. What kind of management systems are better for this soil or another soil, and so on. So there is no thing like a global soil. Every soil is different, and every this kind of management combinations are better, or this condition are different. Okay, so this is experimental part, and I know that Christy should go for another meeting, so thank you for taking the part, and we will follow them to some more illustrated examples what is happening around the Europe, in an example of Estonia related to the mineral soils. So I will give word to Elsa Purdu.
Thank you, Alar, and I just wanted to point out again these two things we have to keep in mind when we talk about carbon sequestration. The first question is carbon sequestration limited or unlimited in the soil, and is it the same in all the places in the world? And as you just saw, it's really different. It really depends on the soils. It depends on the soil types, on soil texture, on soil water regime, and of course the management practices we do on our fields. And you see here we have a map for Europe showcasing what's the carbon saturation potential in European countries when we would compare the current land use with grassland land use, which is a quite impossible way of converting our land use entirely to grasslands. But this is just a way to show the potential of increasing carbon in our soils. And you can see from the map, all the blue areas, these are all saturated already. There is no possibility of increasing carbon in these soils. So we should really focus only on the yellow and brownish areas in the Europe scale. But, Alar, if you can change. If we go to local scale, every country is interested in knowing what's happening to their soils. This is the imperative question here. How can we act in our own countries to increase, or is there any way, a potential to increase carbon? And it depends on one thing, except for the soil, is how you manage the soil. If you use sustainable management practices, then you have a better opportunity to increase it. So we run a small experiment, or it's not so small, as FAO did it, or initiated it for the entire world to do it. If we increase carbon for 5% in 20 years perspective, or if we increase it for 20%, what will happen? Can we sequester more carbon in our agricultural soils? And as you can see, if we sequester only 5%, we don't gain much carbon in the soil. It's really small, only 0.05 tons of carbon per hectare per year. So it's a really, really small scale win. But if we do better management decisions, if we do better, more diverse crop rotations, use cover crops, other management strategies, we can increase carbon sequestration in the mineral soils in Estonia and also, of course, in other countries. So I encourage you to look for this map in the internet to find out what has been done in your country. But why these maps are here is that we need data to accurately assess these potentials. You know, the status of organic carbon in our soils, the potential to sequester it all comes down to the local data we have. And yes, you can see from the first two graphs, here are presented 3 different monitoring systems we have. The first one is Lucas soil monitoring. In European country, there is a EU-wide monitoring system called Lucas, where soils are monitored in exactly the same way, analyzed in all the same methods, to be able to compare what has happened to the soils in EU. But there's a small but here. The sample size is really small. For Estonia, only 55 sites for agricultural soils. Of course, I have to say that for the national monitoring we have in our own country, the sample size is also small, only 20 sites. But if we look at this farmers' data we have collected soil samples from the farmers' field up to 700,000 hectares, and we have 1 million hectares of agricultural land in Estonia. So this gives us a really good idea what's really happening to the soils if they are managed there. And so we use of course, this field data to analyze what's happening to our soils and use it also. Another thing to point out in this graph is that Lucas soil, the EU sees our organic carbon in a smaller concentration than we see in our national studies. The difference is only 0.5%, but it's systematic. You see that between years it stays the same. A third point with this graph is that organic carbon in Estonian soils is quite stable. No big changes have happened in 10 years. But of course, in the context of carbon, 10 years is not a very large scale. We should look for a bigger time frame for that. And this local data comes again really handy and really necessary in context of legislation. Right now in EU there's a proposal for EU soil monitoring directive, and there are really heated conversations ongoing about these indicators, what will be used there for assessing soil health. Alar, if you could switch the slide. And one of the indicators is the ratio of organic carbon and clay. This should also show us maybe the potential of sequestering carbon. And if we have this great local scale data, we can already assess if our soils are healthy. So this is the main point of soil directive, to figure out how much soils in the EU countries are in healthy status and how much are degraded. As was mentioned by Kristi, that 70% of EU's soils are degraded. Well, I can say, based on this one indicator, that for Estonia, it's not that bad situation. We have quite good numbers here, but if we go deeper in the field scale, you can see from this smaller figure here that it's very diverse. It's really diverse, but it depends on the clay content. If you have high clay content and less carbon, then of course this ratio is so-called in the degraded status. But the data underlying all of these analyses is really, really crucial, and I think each country should stand by and really make an effort that in the EU scale, in worldwide scale, their own data is used for such kind of assessments. And although carbon is really important in climate change context, the carbon cycle, we should really still keep our focus on food security. This is more relevant. But now to the next topic, I think, which is more susceptible to climate change.
I will just make a change in the context that also provided examples that in some points we have potential to do something better as we are doing today, and to increase this kind of carbon stocks in the soil. But the next organic soils, this is if we keep them in this kind of agricultural management, probably best what we can do is to reduce some emissions, but not to target as they are behaving in natural conditions, and this is not happening anymore, so that completely like going to the different side. Please.
Thank you all. Yes, it's about organic soils. We are continuing now, and by this we are switching a bit from soil carbon sequestration to greenhouse gas emissions. And we have done quite a lot here in Baltic states regionally. We have worked in Life for Balt project, Baltic states together with Finland and Germany for already almost 4 years. And we have measured in real estate conditions greenhouse gas emissions in forest and agricultural land in Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia, and got results. But indeed, why organic soil, why the soil is so important in climate change discussions, and this is exactly because of this disadvantageous proportion between area, hectares of organic soil you can find in Europe. It's about 3% per area, but if you analyze greenhouse gas emissions, it's about 1/4 of agricultural greenhouse gas emissions. So 3% per area gives 25% of greenhouse gas emissions. It's point where you have to think what to do further and what data do you have. And to continue about data, in this graph you can see situation in forest land with organic soil, but the situation is more or less the same as about agricultural land. And by Life for Balt project we are doubling sites where greenhouse gas measurements are currently done in temperate climate zone currently. So you can base your knowledge on 10 sites measured, or you can base your knowledge on more sites measured. And outcome differs, of course, especially if you consider and discuss temperate, cool, moist climate zone, which is quite large area. And when you do measurements nationally, here you can see a situation of currently used greenhouse gas emission factors in national inventories. With green, you can see Baltic states and currently used emission factors. Lithuania, Estonia use IPCC guidelines 2006 default emission factors. Latvia currently use national greenhouse gas emission factors obtained from another study. And then there is in orange bar IPCC 2014 wetland supplement greenhouse gas emission factors. We are encouraged to move towards implementation of wetland supplement, and you can see this difference. It's quite a big difference because these emission factors are done for big area, to say it in very easy words. And with blue you can see results, preliminary results from Life for Balt project. It's a regional result. We have results, of course, also in division by countries, 3 countries, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. And you can see that emission factors obtained in regional, local measurements are different to compare with IPCC guideline default emission factors, and probably more precise. At least we truly believe that, of course, these results are more precise. And by this I would like to go to the next slide, which is a bit philosophical one. When you make policy, you will find yourself in a situation where you have to be very cautious about data you put in your models, in your understanding when you make policy decisions, when you set targets. You should be very cautious about input data to get good result in policy making. And of course, better data you have, better is outcome, always and everywhere. And by this, I would also point attention on various greenhouse gas emission factors currently used by different countries in greenhouse gas inventory. And if you want to make targets for regions, you want to be zone comparable, and it's completely okay to use national greenhouse gas inventory data, of course, but you have to be aware that different countries completely in line with IPCC guidelines use different emission factors still, and it's completely okay. And the same is about organic soil definitions, for example, and about activity data. In case of organic soils, in our region, different countries use different definitions, and it's again completely in line with IPCC guidelines. It's completely allowed, but when you do policy decisions, you just have to remember this situation. And the same is about uncertainties in wholesale sector and also in all bioorganic sectors that there is quite high uncertainties range. And again, when you do policy decisions, you just have to take it into account. And by this, I would like to stop here. And, yeah.
Thank you. And just going to the last point, so that I think our main message is that I hope that you understand from the balloon experiment as well that the soil and surrounding conditions can be extremely different, and you cannot fit one size shoes to everywhere and solutions, and it means it should be the contextualized approach as much as possible, and think global but act local with a harmony with the soil. And one thing is maybe in this event we talk about as to capture CO2 from atmosphere to the soil and keep it there, but for the soil management and food security, the soil health in more general has even more wider and importance, and this is the main principle of how we should explain these benefits for the farmers as well, so that through this, in most cases, they improve their soils in multiple ways, and this can be win-win situation as well, but it works only when you know your conditions and what kind of practices are good for this. And also, as Eva brings examples that need for harmonized, it's a terminology or to up to the policy and reporting about greenhouse gas emissions, and it's very high relevance. So I would like to thank you all, especially Kristi, Eva, and Elsa. And now, if you have any comments or questions, so that I don't know how much people have time, but we can use this time. Okay. Any emotions? You got so silent? Yeah.
Thank you for a very interesting discussion. I don't know, maybe it was already touched upon, but how are the Baltic countries collaborating with this? Maybe you have a few insights.
So examples also these kind of projects what are indicated on this slides in this board part dealing with the organic soils. The Finland is included, Estonia, Latvia, I'm not sure about the Lithuania, and also this AGP soil program, which is all around Europe program, and there is different activities dealing with this carbon issues and all these kind of developments as well, and trying to provide more practical this kind of monitoring, reporting, verification system for the soil carbon, and well, this kind of course, always this kind of cooperation can be more strong, but there are some good examples for cooperation already. But I would just somebody asked how to explain that this balloon was exploding. What was happening? If you really now think to the soil context, what was happening then? Any ideas? Yeah. They were soils. They were not balloons. But what happened? If it would be in the agricultural field. So, you have some.
Something explodes means some kind of a catastrophic event, like a flood or something that just washes away everything.
Yeah. And that's it. It's a very good example in agricultural land. If you do not manage according to the condition, you can face a massive erosion as well. And this can be, with some hours, all your topsoil is going somewhere else, in the worst case, to the water bodies. And it's possible, it's an explosion. So, but yeah, please.
I'm Deepak from India. I just have one question. Do you think local or indigenous crops have more potential to sequester carbon as compared to some newly introduced exotic crop species in an area? Because this changing cropping pattern is also affecting food security. So,
What kind of crops?
Indigenous crops have more potential to sequester carbon as compared to maybe some newly introduced crops in the area. Is it so?
Yeah. In most cases, yes, because of this helps to transform also this additional nitrogen into the cycling, and in most cases in region when we have like nitrogen limited productivity in the system, it will help to inflate more carbon into your balloon. That's it. But of course, it's often. In some cases, there are also the trade-offs. It's not always that you bring more new, like a fresh biomass. It's can be increase carbon, but in some conditions it can increase the nitrogen oxide emissions. So that it's again, what is the total, like a net climate mitigation effect? This can be more tricky.
No, I thought I should say something as well. I'm Christina from Lithuania, Ministry of Agriculture, so because we have from Estonia and Latvia, so I'm just adding to the collaboration between the three Baltic countries. So Lithuania is definitely participating in AGP soil and Orval. But I also wanted to mention, I think it contributes to the discussion, the EU proposed nature restoration law. So the mineral soils deal more with the directive that was mentioned, but for the organic soils there was there's an article that specifically talks about restoration of organic soils under agricultural use, and so that contributes to the collaboration aspect, because during the negotiations we definitely talked a lot with our Estonian and Latvian colleagues, since we are kind of in a similar situation when it comes to peatlands. And I think that's what was meant by the different policy sort of areas and different data that we have, because in between the three countries, we definitely use even different definitions, what we mean by peatlands. So I think that's, that I totally agree about the harmonization and how it impacts policy as well, because then we saw that we couldn't really agree on the same position together, because we saw like the picture our similar peatlands very differently. So I think that was quite interesting and also relevant for today.
Eva, do you want to comment or you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree, and that was exactly what I wanted to point out here about different definitions. And if one country starts organic soil from 20 centimeters and another from 40, then there is quite a difference. And when you put the targets on, and it's always also very important how deep in aggregation you go when you use greenhouse gas inventory data. Of course, overall, greenhouse gas emissions per sector is one story, but when you go for one specific set of data, very detailed one, you should be cautious. It may be better to use another source even for policy planning because of these differences and uncertainties.
So it seems to be that the time is close to finalize. I hope that we all learned something. And sorry about this plastic pollution, but I believe that it was worth to give a message, and I recommend you also make this experiment at your home or at your office if you go to your minister or whatever, so maybe even repeat or multiply this idea.